Well, Razorback fans, we have to ask the age-old question that we ask here on this podcast. What if Arkansas beats Texas A&M? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful, wonderful Friday as we finally made it. Trying to get my microphone fixed here. And we have a big game, as we all know, for Arkansas coming up tomorrow for Arkansas, Texas A&M, Southwest Classic. Hooray! The game that always ends so great, and it's always so fun until the very end. You know what this game reminds me of? It's like Game of Thrones. It's like it's so good until the very end. And the ending ruins it all. I can't tell you how many times I've been in AT&T Stadium where I've had fun. At some point, in fact, I think almost every game, if not every game that I've been in Arlington, I've had fun at some point in time during the game. It's never been miserable the whole time. And it's always about the ending, and it always goes wrong for Arkansas. But that's kind of the case of, what Arkansas is going to be going into and how important this game is. And, I kind of wanted to do a twofold thing, I guess, so maybe it sounds a little bit confusing. But I did want to do a thing of, okay, let's talk about why Arkansas beats Texas A&M and also what if Arkansas beats Texas A&M. So it's kind of a twofold thing because it'll go hand in hand. And so it'll be a pretty quick podcast here today because I got to get on the road, get down to AT&T Stadium. But I'll start with this. Why Arkansas beats Texas A&M? To me, it's a pretty simple thing for Arkansas. Is because right now, Arkansas is sitting at 2-2, we all know. And we all know how that 2-2 has looked. And we all know that Arkansas has lost 2 games now in a row that you felt like you should have won. Not saying that you deserve to win, but you felt like that you should have won. And, your mistakes that you've made in these particular games have been crucial to the outcome of the game itself. And the reason that I believe Arkansas wins this game against Texas A&M, or why they beat Texas A&M, is because they have an element of high-quality experience, a team camaraderie that really fits well together, a culture that seems to be really fitting well together. And you have guys that have been there before that also want to have a little bit of a revenge in this particular game. I'm looking at KJ Jefferson wanting to avenge from last year's mistake. I'm thinking of somebody like Cam Little, who missed that field goal, to where if he has an opportunity to win the game or to at least put Arkansas in a really good position, that he's going to want to avenge that too. I think you have Sam Pittman, who understands that his back is against the wall, as well as his team is their backs against the wall, knowing what's coming up on the schedule. And the fact that that you have down there in Arlington have not won very often. And this is your chance to, at least here in the final few years, be able to take advantage and win this game. But what is going to take all of that, and again, I'm not disrespecting Texas A&M in any way, shape, or form. I think they're a good team. I think they're a better team, much better team than what they were last year. But what I am looking at is that the fact that you have your backup quarterback now being Max Johnson, and he's having to start. You don't have Connor Wigman, and I know that Max Johnson's experienced. He played against Arkansas last year, and he's got some elements to him, and Bobby Petrino's still the offense coordinator. All of that stuff. However, there's a reason why he's the backup quarterback. There's a reason why he's not QB1. And the reason you would hope to be is because there is a drop-off. So for Arkansas to have that, while also looking like they're going to get Rocket Sanders back, which we'll talk a little bit more specifically in the next segment, those things alone feels like Arkansas has the edge, or at least should have the edge in this game. And if they're going to have all of that, if they're going to have Rocket Sanders back, if they're going to go up against the backup quarterback, it's all going to come down to the same things that it's come down to each and every game that Arkansas has played so far this year, but particularly the 2 games that they've lost. Penalties, red zone. Those are the 2 things for Arkansas. Penalties, red zone. Now, Arkansas has actually done a pretty good job in the red zone as far as scoring points. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, they are number 1 in the SEC, or at least tied for the number 1, or at least in the top 2 when it comes to red zone offense of getting points. They have yet to get into the red zone where they have not either gotten a field goal or gotten a touchdown, at least according to the stats I was looking at. But it doesn't matter because you've had too many field goals and not enough touchdowns. If you had just one of those red zone trips or those first and goal situations last week against LSU, and you punch one of those in for a touchdown, that's the difference in the game. I even think it's the same way against BYU. If you punch it in when you're supposed to punch it in, instead of going for a field goal or having a turnover or whatever it is, you win that game. Those are the two things. Penalties, red zone touchdowns. If you limit your penalties, and when you're on the goal line, you punch it in for touchdowns, you're going to win the game. That's what I believe. I think it's as simple as that. As weird as and much you may disagree, I think it's as weird as that. So that's why Arkansas wins, or at least how Arkansas wins. Now, what if Arkansas wins? Knowing the reaction of what it would be for many people, we'll look at for the Razorback fans in general. I think Razorback fans, say if they win, and I think my prediction or whatnot, I think it's going to be some 35-31, like higher scoring, but still close game, one possession game, just like it always is. I think in that particular case, you're going to have everybody in Razorback Nation, maybe not fully back on board, full send. Sam Pittman, we love the man once again. He's great. He's awesome. This is going to be a great year. Maybe not to that extent, but you're going to have everybody say, okay, let's see what you got the rest of the year. Let's see how this goes. You got some confidence now. You beat a good team. You got that monkey off your back. You avenged last year's loss, and you did it by limiting your penalties and being able to punch it in the red zone. Good job. You worked on the stuff that you're supposed to improve on. So build upon this and make it work. I think that's how people would view it. Everyone would be excited. I'd be pumped if they beat Texas A&M because, again, Texas A&M is a good team. But it would be more about, all right, we got it. Let's see how it goes the rest of the way. Let's see what this team's made of. Let's see how much they got left in the tank. And so that would be the reaction from everybody. And, I think at least I would be on board to where suddenly that Ole Miss game looks more winnable. Not saying you'd win, but winnable. Same thing with Bama. Looks a little bit better. You got to find that confidence. You got to, because Arkansas doesn't have a good win this year. They don't. And close wins doesn't matter. I mean, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So you got to find a way to get those wins. But if they do that, they make that happen, it's going to get a lot of people back on board. But we got to see something from them. Folks, I got to tell you, though, about Nutrafol. Now, for those of you who are up there in age, just like I'm getting, my goodness, my birthday's next week, and getting older and older each day. A lot of times that when it comes to our hair and everything, it starts to thin out a little bit. I've been dealing with it for a while, and I know a lot of you have as well. But that's what Nutrafol is here to help you. It's the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, physical thickness, and physical scalp coverage. It's a hair growth supplement that's uses physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients, and their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health, which we know is always very important for everybody. It supports healthy hair growth and from within by targeting the root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, metabolism. Throughout the whole body of health is really what it does. So take the first step to getting visibly thicker hair and healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering my listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter in promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. It's Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter in promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. There has been the discussions of Rocket Sanders, and looks like he's going to be playing in this game for Arkansas. All signs are pointing towards that. It's not confirmed, but I know that we had Sam Pittman say in his SEC teleconference that he was impressed on Monday, looked a lot further along than what they thought, and they're going to try to do what it can to get him out there and to get him to play. But it still says that there's still some things that they got to go through and got to figure out. And it's the same thing with some of the media members in local media. They believe that it's looking good. And some people would even go as far to say that, yeah, they expect him to play against Texas A&M in this game. And so I think that it's safe to say that it would be a surprise to most if Rocket Sanders didn't have some sort of role in this game against Texas A&M. Now, I know that it's hard to get excited overall about a player just coming in after battling an injury for 4 straight games, even if it's as good of a player as Rocket Sanders, and then throwing him in to a game like Texas A&M and saying, all right, go be great again. Go be the best team and best player that you can possibly be without question. I know that's easier said than done for sure. But I do remember that it is Rocket Sanders after all. And I know with Rocket, he is the full package. He is such a great player. He's worked on his speed. He's worked on his strength. And we'll see how much the injury has been impacting him or if it will impact him in this game. But we're going to go ahead and assume that if he does play, that he is 100% healthy or at least as close to 100% as you can get. The impact that he has is just opening up so many opportunities and everything, because suddenly with having Rocket Sanders out there, regardless of him playing and having a lot of production, the other part of it would just be the threat of him being out there. Because if he's out there, suddenly A&M's defense has to say, okay, that's that dude. That's that number 5. Have somebody on him. Watch him. And it can be in the rushing attack because we know of his speed and ability. But we also know in the screen game because he's got great hands and can catch the ball. He really doesn't have a weakness in his game. And so just having him on the field is going to have to provide some of the attention, some of the focus away from some of the other players, which means it opens it up for some of the wide receivers or some of the other running backs or even KJ Jefferson himself. So that's the thing I'm probably most excited about having Rocket Sanders back is just the idea of him being out there, the threat of him being out there, and the type of difference that him being out there can make when it comes to the team itself. But it's crazy. Arkansas has not had a 100-yard rusher so far this year in any game. I don't know what their streak is of not having a 100-yard rusher in a game. There's no telling, actually. I can't think of the last time where they went 4 straight games, or in this case, if they didn't get 5 straight games without a 100-yard rusher ever. But man, would this be the time to do it? Imagine if I feel like, if we talk about simplicity of winning the games and whatnot, if Rocket Sanders has 100+ yards in this game, I think Arkansas wins. Because I think KJ is going to do a good job, which, we talked about the stats of how good Texas A&M's pass defense is, which it is, but you also got to consider who they've played. I mean, Auburn has one of the worst passing offenses in the SEC. I wanted to say even, I forgot the team. Was it New Mexico State maybe? One of those teams that A&M played in the early part of the year, a non-conference game. They have the worst pass offense in the country. So take that for what it is. But still, if you can just be balanced once again offensively, then Arkansas is going to be in great shape, and that's what it comes down to. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kilts, and as well as LED lights, which we all like to have those. So much more. When you're either into speed or power or style, they got it all with eBay Motors because they have you covered. With over 122 million different parts for your number one ride or die, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time and your money back. Or your money back, excuse me. But because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment, the final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I just want to do a quick look ahead to some of the games going on this weekend in the SEC and how it can impact not only Arkansas, but just the conference in general. It's amazing we're already heading into week 5 of the college football season. But without a doubt, Arkansas's Texas A&M is an interesting game. Probably I think it's the most interesting game based solely on the fact that you have 2 teams that desperately need a win. And knowing the implication of what could happen if you don't get the win, how badly it will go for you. So that game's at 11 a.m. SEC Network. So, yeah, Arkansas, Texas A&M is going to be the early part. Kentucky, Florida is interesting. Florida's in the top 25. Kentucky's not, which is crazy. Kentucky's 4-0. I know they haven't necessarily just had any stellar wins, but this game's being played in Lexington, so there's some interest there. Georgia and Auburn. This game's on the road for Georgia, so they're playing there in Auburn. I think Georgia Auburn's not going to score a point. I got to be surprised they score over 10 points against Georgia. They can't score against anybody. I'm not saying Georgia's that good, but they're still number one. They're still undefeated, and I don't think Auburn's going to have any shots. So that's not interesting. Missouri and Vanderbilt, who gives a rip? The other one's LSU and Ole Miss. That's the top 25 matchup in this conference. And, of course, LSU was the opponent Arkansas had last week. Ole Miss is the opponent Arkansas has next week. LSU, I think, is favored by 2.5 points in this game. It's in Oxford. So, I don't know. I think if Arkansas would have beaten LSU, I still think it would have been kind of the same outcome. But I think LSU goes into Ole Miss and smokes them. I think so. Just because I think Brian Kelly and LSU are going to look at last week's performance against Arkansas and be, hey, let's wake up. We can't let that happen again, and we're not going to let it happen again. I think they're going to be motivated. I think they take care of business in that game. I think they went on the road against Ole Miss. But if you're Arkansas, would you rather have Ole Miss beat LSU at home and then the next week maybe have them a little slipping a little bit? I don't know if there's anything to it, but still, something to think about at least. South Carolina, Tennessee, two teams that I don't think are very good, but I think Tennessee wins this one. I think they're favored by 12 points in this game. I don't know if it's that high for them, but South Carolina is just not. I've never been a fan of Shane Beamer, as you all know, and I just don't trust them. They seem like they can have the ability to score a bunch of points at any time, but it seems like they can't stop anybody. It seems they have bad coaching decisions, bad decisions all around. So I think Tennessee's big in that one. And then Alabama, Mississippi State might be intriguing, but it's in there in Starkville, and it's nothing against Mississippi State, but it might be one of the lowest scoring games you see. I think. Alabama's offense, if they can't score effectively against Mississippi State, I don't know who they will. I'm not saying Mississippi State's got a bad defense. I'm just saying at some point in time, you got to turn that new leaf and get it going. But I don't know. To me, Arkansas and A&M is still the most intriguing game of the weekend, and it's not really even close. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. I should say next Monday, actually, unless I do a podcast. I don't know. Maybe I'll see you on Sunday. But either way, we're going to see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody.